All right, guys, we want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here will be looking at an underrated top 20 matchup between Louisville and Notre Dame. Cardinal going on the road as 5.5-point dogs to South Bend, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 48 is the over-under, and for some reason this game's on Peacock. Looking at the offense for Louisville, Tyler Shaw, a guy that I was critical of in the preseason. A player that really just not been able to play all that much in his career. He got the start for Oregon back in, a shortened season for only 4 games in 23. Also only played 4 games as he got hurt last year at Texas Tech. So it's been, a really tough season for him in terms of experience. He's been in college since 2019, but being on the field, for that matter, not as much as you would think. But this guy's got great size, 6'5", 225, has showcased abilities to be an accurate, consistent passer. And this year, he's been flat-out elite under pressure. He's typically been rattled in these situations, though. Has finally saw continuous action, though, without getting hurt, which has allowed him to play sound, consistent ball. And, in this game, will he be able to stick to the structure of the offense and stay on schedule? And I think that's going to be the biggest question against Notre Dame. You're not going to come in here and throw for, 300 yards per like he's been doing. Against Texas Tech, it was a very good game. He was able to do those things, stay on schedule, be good under pressure. And the games against the weaker opponents, he was able to light up the scoreboard with production. And the thing here for Louisville is they have receivers that can stretch the field. Ja'Cory Brooks has been elite this year, 300 yards and 2 scores. Chris Bell averaging almost 28 yards per catch. Jaden Thompson has shown the ability in the past to be a downfield playmaker. And then they're hoping Colin Lacey, Nick, the South Alabama transfer, who's been injured all year long, will be good to go in this game. That's the expectation. I don't expect him to be a great contributor, though. When it comes to injuries, you really just don't know. So we're not really going to factor him in too much, but if he does play, it is a significant boost. Your thoughts on Shaw this far and how he'll do on this road environment?
Yeah, Tyler Shaw's been really good so far this season. I felt like, it wasn't that bad of a fit at Louisville. I was a little more high on him in the preseason than most people, but I've been blown away, even thus far. Been impressed, 850 yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 68% comp rate, about 300 yards per game through the air. Really solid numbers so far this season. He's looked really comfortable in the pocket. And he's got a lot of different targets, Ja'Cory Brooks being his favorite target, with 17 receptions, far and away the most targeted receiver, 300 yards receiving, 17.5 yards per grab, and 2 scores, the former Bama player. Getting a lot of targets in this new Cardinal offense and looks really good. Chris Bell, Jaden Thompson, Jamari Johnson are all also getting targets and all having decent seasons. Thompson and Bell have 2 receiving touchdowns each, while Mark Redmond has 1 as well. So been very impressed with this. Good balance in this offense through the air. Like I said, there are 4 guys there with 2 touchdowns each. So he's been spreading the ball out, even if he is targeting Brooks a lot, who should get some extra attention from this Notre Dame secondary. Been very impressed with this passing attack so far, but now they're facing a tougher defense, a defense that is stingy at times against the pass. What will that matchup look like for the Cardinals?
And it is a good secondary for Georgia Tech, not anywhere in the same stratosphere as Notre Dame by any means, but Louisville certainly has answered the call so far this year, throwing the football. This will be a big test for Shaw, though, to ultimately see where he lies. Looking at this rushing attack, though, on the other hand, they have not been all that great. They had 2 willful opponents they were able to really run up the score on. But here against Georgia Tech, they were flat out awful. They didn't, it's real, to start with, it's been a by-committee approach at running back. They ran it up again on 2 bad opponents, but they only had 57 yards against the Yellow Jackets. Didn't have a single run of 10-plus yards. They didn't allow a single sack either, so that number's not skewed by, potentially negative rushing yards by the quarterback, Nick. This is flat out awful what they did last week, and they were still able to win the game. But again, when it comes to the differences in defenses, Notre Dame is phenomenal against the run. They're great up front. This is not ideal for them. The O-line we'll get to in a second, how good they've been in pass protection. But in terms of run blocking, seems like they're going to be incredibly stagnant. And you're looking at some of those running backs, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Keyon Brown, and then Mo Turner. The top 3 rushers are all freshmen, and then the veteran in Turner, and then Donald Chaney has been getting involved. So they have 5 different guys who have had 10-plus carries, Nick. Really don't know who's going to be the bell cow here. Again, by committee is going to be the approach. What are your thoughts, though, on this offensive line after they didn't generate much push up front against an elite ND front?
By committee approach has really been what's going on here. They've not been able to run the ball as effective as they want to. The leading rusher against the Yellow Jackets was Chaney with 10 carries for 23 yards. So not very effective on the ground game against Georgia Tech. This rushing attack, they ran really well against some bad teams early on in the season, nearly 200 yards per game, carried by those 2 bad teams they played earlier, or 2 below par teams they played earlier in the season against Jacksonville State and Austin Peay. But this rushing attack, they have a tough test here. Isaac Brown, 173 yards rushing, a touchdown. Duke Watson, 141 and 2 scores. Kenjon Brown, Maurice Turner, Donald Chaney, all are being involved. Chaney obviously was getting the bulk of his carries from this season in the game against Georgia Tech. They're facing a very strong run defense for Notre Dame that does not give up yards easy, and that's going to be definitely a tough matchup. I think if Louisville is going to win this game, they're going to have to do it through the air, because I don't think they're going to get much on the ground against this great defensive line and great defensive unit overall against the run that Notre Dame has.
And looking at that offensive line, again, they didn't do much in terms of getting a push, but in terms of pass protection, they've been great this year. Monroe Mills, a high-priced left tackle, they're able to snag's been great. Michael Gonzalez, a veteran guard on the left side. Pete Nigra, another guy who's got a lot of experience, has been one of the best centers in America in terms of pass protection. Austin Collins hasn't given up much penetration. Jonathan Mendoza has been an all-around consistent player, even though in pass protection, he's probably maybe a bit of the weaker link of this unit. They've all been very stout, though. Very interesting, Nick, that an offensive line can be this good. I thought Georgia Tech is a respectable pass rush here. Is this an opportunity for them to potentially get exposed, you think? Because, again, I'm going to keep harping on it. Irish, elite defensive line. I don't think that will happen to them, but it's very possible it does.
I think it is very possible. I don't think it happens either. I think they will find a way to bend, don't break. But this is certainly, if you're going to have a team where you're going to have a bad game on the offensive line against an elite pass rush, that's certainly one to do it against at Notre Dame, playing in a tough environment where Shao's going to have to deal with the loud environment that they have up there in South Bend. Might throw the offensive line off a little bit, might get a few penalties here and there. Certainly a matchup that I'm keeping my eye on, a little concerned about, because I think this could be a potential weak spot for Louisville.
And, to kind of cap this off, I think it'll be somewhat like last week. Great pass pro, not much on the ground. They're going to be creative to get the running backs to produce in this contest. I think it'll be a nice challenge for the Braun brothers, though. Looking at the Notre Dame offense, Riley Leonard's legs are finally being effective. He's been getting about 11, 12 touches per game. They're going to see around the same, at least 15 plus, I think, in this one. In the first 2 weeks you saw that, not much yards to speak of. 243 combined yards the last 2 weeks and 5 touchdowns, Nick. And this is a great strength for Riley Leonard, his legs, to match with a great group of running backs. And we'll start with the ground attack that Notre Dame is bringing to the table first. Jeremiah Love, 339 and 4 scores. 193, that is for Jadarian Price with 2 more touchdowns. This run game, coming off an upset loss to NIU, they bounced back tremendously. 362, 6 scores against Purdue. Against a good defense here in Miami of Ohio, averaged 7.5 yards per carry and 270 yards with another 3 scores. So this ground game, Nick, they're coming into this game with great momentum. They're also facing a great defensive line in their own right. We'll talk about some of the deeper matchups here in a second. But so far, these guys, they're talented and they're producing.
This rushing attack has been really solid after having a bad game against NIU. 238 yards per game on the ground. Solid numbers there. Love, 339, 7.4 yards per carry and 4 scores. Riley Leonard, 332, 7 yards per carry and 6 scores. Jadarian Price is 193, 7.4 yards per carry and 2 scores. So at least 7 yards per carry for your top 3 rushers is a very impressive stat. They average 6.7 yards per attempt in total on the ground and 3.3 yards per game, or touchdowns per game, that is, on the ground. They got to find a way to attack on the ground in this game. They have to have good balance. I think, continue. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Continue running the ball with success. It's going to be a tough matchup against a strong Louisville defensive line. But I think the key to success here for Notre Dame is run the ball over and over again and see what you can do and try to find that balance that you have between your quarterback's legs and your running backs, and that two nice duos they have there.
And we'll stay focused on the matchup in the trenches, for Notre Dame. Anthony Knapp, at left tackle, is going to be a third stringer this year, got forced into action due to injuries. He's been awful, flat out not good at all, allowing a lot of pressure, just cannot handle much in pass protection. Left guard, Sam Pendleton, not really any better. He hasn't allowed a sack, though. I think that's certainly good. Pretty inconsistent player there, though. At center, Ashton Craig, been a pleasant surprise for them. Pat Coogan as well, whenever he's been playing. Hoover gets the nod at center. I think certainly going to be a big leader for them. Billy Sheriff at right guard. Him and Rocco Spindler have been splitting roles at right guard as well. Both of them have been very good. I think they need to find a way to try and incorporate both of them into the lineup. And then over at right tackle, Emil Wagner, he's been very impressive as well. So this left side, Nick's not great, and you knew replacing these tackles was going to be a big challenge for them. They seem to handle the challenge against Texas A&M in the opener quite well. This passing attack, though, is certainly stalled out because of it. We'll get to that in a second. Just the final touches on the run game is they're going to have to be strong up front, need to win to the boundary. Something Riley Leonard can do a great deal of, Nick, is winning out wide. So I think that's going to be the approach from this run game because, again, it is a very good D-line they're facing. What are your thoughts on how the Irish have played up front so far this year? A little bit of good, a lot of bad as well, though.
A little bit good, a little bit bad. I think they're going to have to find a way to get to the boundaries, get around the corners, certainly find ways to get to the outside, run towards the out of bounds line, try and use the outside of the field as much as possible, use the edge of the field as much as possible, get Riley's legs involved to run the ball effectively. Offensive line, I think, has been good, not great, definitely some concerns, but obviously injuries have played a role in that. Want to see how they hold up here against this Cardinals defensive line that has some solid pieces.
Now, the offensive line matched with the limitations of Riley Leonard as a passer has just certainly made this offense one-dimensional. Only 5 passing plays of 20-plus yards, 124th in FBS. And that was a problem before they had Sam Hartman last year. They had more of a downfield passing attack. Now they've reverted back to the same of just being incredibly stagnant. And the thing is they have good wide receivers, though. They just can't get them involved. Bo Collins, the Clemson transfer, is shockingly enough the leading pass catcher in all categories so far. Jaden Greathouse, Jaden Harrison, the prized transfer Chris Mitchell, and then a great tight end of Mitchell Evans, and then even another guy for good measure, Jaden Thomas. I mean, this is a pretty good receiving group, I would say, Nick, but they're just not producing, and things I just spoke of are a big reason why. How can we get these guys more involved in the offense?
This has been a weak passing attack. It really has not been great so far. Riley Leonard only has 1 passing touchdown so far this season. He has 2 picks, 587 yards, 63% comp rate. Bo Collins really is the only guy that's getting a lot of targets here, 176 yards receiving, a touchdown for him. Jaden Greathouse, he had 9 receptions, and 79 total yards. I don't know what the key to figuring out this offense passing attack for Notre Dame is. It's been working for the most part running the ball. Obviously, they lost to NIU, and that was a disappointing loss for them. They have to find a way to pass the ball. I don't think running the ball will be enough to get the job done against this Cardinals team. I just don't know if Riley Leonard has it in him with the weapons he has right now. Been very concerned, and you figured at some point with the way that they're so one-dimensional that they're going to run into a team that's going to be able to do that, stop the run, and make things difficult. NIU just happened to be the team to get that job done and pull off the stunning upset in South Bend, and I'm expecting the rushing attack to not have a great day against Louisville, and will put the Notre Dame Fighting Irish offense in a bit of an issue if they're not able to find a way to throw the ball and bail themselves out.
Now, looking at the Louisville defense, and again, this is a D-line I'm very happy with. It's one of the nation's best. Tramel Logan's been a pleasant surprise with 5 TFL, and Jared Dawson has been great. Thor Griffin, one of those transfers, is very good against the run. They're incredibly deep. There's a lot of names here you can continue to rattle off. Ashton Gelati, Desmond Taylor, those are going to be the most impressive ones. Mason Geiger. These guys are very deep up front. They don't do much in terms of allowing against the run. Only 98 yards and 2 scores given up against Georgia Tech. That's almost 2.5 yards per carry. That's a very good Georgia Tech rushing attack. They completely held them in check, Nick. Most of the Jackets' production came through the air. They've not folded. They were like this last year, too, where they didn't give up much at all. Didn't allow a single game of 200-plus yards. And only had 3 on the year of over 150. This is a very good run defense, one of the best in the country. And if Notre Dame's going to be one-dimensional, it's going to be hard for them to move the ball because these guys will have success.
This is a very strong run defense. That's why I think that Louisville will have a lot of success in this game, is that they're very strong as a run defense unit. If Notre Dame's not able to run the ball effectively, this game could get ugly for them. Tramel Logan, 11 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble for him. MJ Griffin, 10 total tackles. Jared Dawson, 9 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Ashton Gelati, 9 total tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, plus a sack. Desmond Tell, 5 total tackles. Raymond Puryear, 3 total tackles, 5 tackles for Desmond Tell, and 2 pass breakups for Puryear. So this is a very, by committee approach. A lot of good players getting a lot of tackles for loss. Been very impressed with what this Cardinals defensive line's been able to do. And I like the matchup against a banged up and weak Notre Dame offensive line.
Yeah, and Gelati, he hasn't even really, stepped up yet as an edge rusher. Been kind of quiet to start the year. He's going to give that left tackle a bit of a workout. Obviously they have a great rotation as well. So this is going to be a fun matchup to see. I think it's one that can keep Louisville in this game, maybe even potentially win it. You're looking at their linebacking group. Stan Quan Clark, TJ Quinn, guys that have played pretty good up to this point. Felt like this was probably one of the weaker spots on this roster was linebacker. Quinn's a veteran, though, and Clark, he's certainly stepping up early on this year. Looking at their secondary, Nick, this is a group that's, all right. They, gave up some big plays to Georgia Tech through the air, less than desirable there. But I wouldn't say this is a group that's going to be all that tested in this game. Devon Nicholson, a great transfer from Illinois, pairing him with Quincy Riley. Great corner duo. They've been kind of lackluster so far this year in coverage. I think they can get back on track here. Corey Thornton, another transfer who has been very sound as well. Antonio Watts in the slot, guy who's running with that position this year. And then you look at their safeties, Tamarian McDonald, Devin Neal, MJ Griffin. I mean, it's been a complete by-committee approach at safety. I really don't know who the starters are going to be, but these guys are all veterans. I think they're all going to be trusted here. I think McDonald's pretty good against the run, as is Devin Neal, so I think those guys will probably get the most leeway in this one. How do you feel about the secondary, Nick? They shouldn't be an opportunity to expose too much, but that doesn't mean you go out there and lollygag around. You got to be able to play sound football, and I think they will at the end of the day.
I've been happy with what the secondary's been able to do so far. I think it's a solid unit that's having a pretty decent season. Tamarion McDonald, 13 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him. Tavion Nicholson as well has been a really solid add, 13 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss. Antonio Watts, 9 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, a pass breakup. Corey Thornton, 8 total tackles, 2 pass breakups for him, while Quincy Riley has a pick, a pass breakup, and 4 total tackles. I like what the secondary can do. I think it's a really solid unit here that doesn't have a terrible test in front of them with Notre Dame's inability to pass the ball. I expect them to have a pretty solid day.
Now looking at the Notre Dame defense, against NIU, they certainly did less than desirable. That was the worst game of the year, giving up almost 400 yards, allowed some big plays. That final drive, they got kind of grinded down on against the run. But since then, they've been flawless, holding opponents to less than 230 yards. And all 3 other games, it's been under 250 yards. So, I mean, this is a great Notre Dame defense. Starts with a great duo of Howard Cross, Riley Mills, who hasn't been all that productive, Bowie Bakar, Chirori, leading the way as a freshman with 4 TFL, Jason Onway, a veteran, Jordan Bethelo. These are all good players. You certainly wonder who's going to continue to step out in terms of pass rushing, but the interior is very sound. Some of the different guys are stepping up. They have 9 sacks as a team so far. This is a pretty deep unit, Nick. They have 8 sacks coming over the last 2 games, so they have certainly picked up the pace after a slow start to the year. This is an Irish defense that seems to be clicking at the right moment. Marcus Freeman certainly got into these guys after the NIU game, Nick, and I don't expect a repeat for the rest of the year. I wouldn't imagine for the Irish. They're fed up and they're ready to play. This D-line is going to be the one that kicks it off.
They're fed up and they're ready to go, and they want to continue to have a really strong season after getting absolutely torched against NIU, which was a really unacceptable performance considering all things considered. And what this unit's been able to do outside of that so far, I think has been really solid as they're getting better throughout the season, and they're really trying to make sure that they have a really strong defensive line, which is the key to success to start early on. RJ Oben, 5 total tackles, still waiting for him to be fully unleashed. Riley Mills, 10 total tackles. Boubacar Traore, 10 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, a pick 6 for him. Howard Cross, 10 total tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Howard Cross, I really like him in the interior. He's been really solid. I expect a big game out of him. This is a unit that's got to step up and be strong here. They're not really facing an incredible rushing attack, but still, you want to be strong, put some pressure on Shao, make him uncomfortable, and really throw off the sink of this offense.
And you look at the middle of the defense, Jack Kaiser, a guy that we know has been an outstanding leader for them for a couple of years now, having a good year. The rest of that, though, it's an incredibly young group at linebacker. Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, though, they've played very admirably so far this year. I mean, they're very efficient, and they're consistent tacklers. They're helping out against the run. Jalen Sneed as well. They're giving a handful of different guys on the field at linebacker, Nick. I think they're very confident in what they have. Love Marcus Freeman's approach at this position because it was certainly up in the air how they would perform and who would get on the field. But so far, these guys have impressed, and I don't think this will be an opportunity for them to disappoint because there's not going to be much threat of a run game here. I think the linebackers will steal the show.
I think they will steal the show. This is a unit that's really strong. Jack Kaiser, 22 total tackles, leading the team. Derek Brown, 17 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss, which was a sack for him. Jaden Ashbury as well, 13 total tackles and a pass breakup. Been happy with this unit. This is a good unit that's really been solid so far.
Now you look at the secondary, a unit that is considered one of the tops in America. Benjamin Morrison, obviously an elite lockdown corner. Christian Gray won the starting position as a young player. A guy, opponents would probably want to pick on, but so far he's been the better player in terms of ball production. A pick and the 3 pass breakups. Jade Mickey, the number 3 corner, says he's going to redshirt and enter the transfer portal. You're a complete loser. Get off the field. That is just a disgrace, Nick. The slot, though, Jordan Clark has been a phenomenal addition from Arizona State. I was excited for, him coming over and being plugged into this system. He's been great so far, especially in coverage. You look at a guy in Rod Hurd who, was not on the field to start the year, but has been getting on the field more. You certainly wonder what role he'll continue to carve out. He's a versatile player, though. Xavier Watts, a phenomenal safety, won, a lot of hardware last year, and he's off to a phenomenal start yet again. Elite tackler, great against the run. Love his coverage abilities. I mean, this is a guy who can completely change the game with, his versatility. Love the secondary, Nick. Obviously, this is going to be a big test here because Louisville can test you downfield. They are playing a quarterback who's proven to be rattled at times, so I think there'll be opportunities to make plays on the ball. Only 2 touchdowns allowed, 6 interceptions, 43% comp rate allowed. I mean, this is not going to be pretty for Louisville, I wouldn't imagine, but these guys certainly can't, be like the NIU game where they did allow a big play early on. And again, at times under Marcus Freeman, we've seen this team not play up to the standard. Don't think that'll be the case here, but, if they're dancing around a little bit, Louisville can't hurt you.
I figured you wouldn't like Mickey's decision to redshirt sit out the rest of the season. I don't like it either. I feel like it's not being talked enough in the national media. It's a pretty, loser mentality, pretty bad attitude to give up on your team. Not even halfway through the season, not even at the end of September yet, you're giving up on your team and thinking about yourself and not putting the team first. Don't really like that at all. I don't think that should be really fair. Kind of just a gross part of the game at this moment in time. That's all I got to say about that. I want to focus on the players who are going to actually play for this team and continue to be big impacts. And that starts with Xavier Watts, 15 total tackles, 1 pick, 3 pass breakups, really good numbers. Jalen Sneed, 15 total tackles, tackle for loss for him. Really happy with his performance so far. Rob Hurd, Benjamin Morrison, 2 really solid pieces, 12 total tackles for Hurd, 11 for Morrison, 2 pass breakups for Morrison. Christian Gray's impressed me so far, 6 total tackles, a pick, 4 pass breakups. Adon Schuler, 8 total tackles, a pick, and 3 pass breakups. Jordan Clark, 5 total tackles and a pass breakup for him as well. Good numbers across the board. I really like what I've seen out of this secondary. This is a unit that's going to be tested here, right? This is going to be an elite secondary facing an elite passing attack. Bend, don't break mentality. Who's going to have the better day? That's going to decide this game.
Look at the tail of the tape. Team comparisons. I think quarterback will still get the edge of Riley Leonard because I think he has more versatility, bigger playmaker. Running back, I'll give them the edge, even though Louisville has been using a lot of different guys. More talent lies within the Irish. Wide receiver and the O-line to Louisville. A linebacker and secondary, I think, are clear edges for Notre Dame. While the D-line's even, Nick, I truly think that there might be more high-end talent for Notre Dame, but I think Louisville is deeper altogether. A very underrated unit. I think it's a top 5 one in America, quite frankly. And I think this D-line is certainly going to prove that on Saturday. Any concessions with these? You think it's pretty accurate?
I think this makes a lot of sense to me. This is very balanced so far, very accurate. There's a clear advantage for Notre Dame, clear advantages for Louisville as well. Linebacker, I think it'll certainly be a little bit closer potentially, but this is a very balanced tail of tape, and I think it's very fair.
We'll get to the final thoughts and the prediction. Keys to the game, for Louisville, Shao will need to be stout, must create some short field opportunities for this, the defense that is needs to. And then, be strong and pass pro for the Irish. Don't allow big plays downfield. I think this is going to be a very underrated game, very low scoring one. I really don't think that anyone's really going to be able to break away unless they can force some, silly turnovers, 2 or 3 turnovers, but I think blow this game open. Don't think that's going to happen. I think Shao will stay ahead of schedule. I think he'll be good. I do think he'll make some mistakes in terms of, accuracy and being strong on third down. Don't think that's going to be an area Louisville is particularly going to do well in. Notre Dame, though, I don't think they're going to be able to throw the ball, and I don't really know if they're going to be able to run the ball either, but I think this defense will create short fields for them, and they'll be able to spring some big plays on occasion. 2017 for me, low-scoring contest. This is going to be a good game, though, Nick. I think there's a lot of keys that we broke down that are really going to be interesting in this one, and I think Notre Dame, again, they've got a different fire in them since the loss to NIU, so if they can come out here and win this game by 3 scores or something like that, Notre Dame will be back on the radar in the national media. I think it's going to be a close one, though, and you even have them losing.
I have them losing, but I do think this is a game that Notre Dame has to win to really figure things out. At this moment in time, the NIU loss is looking worse and worse as they just fell to Buffalo this past weekend. NIU will no longer be ranked anymore, which certainly harms the Irish who lost at home to them. This is a matchup they have to win. Obviously that's a bit of a no-brainer saying that, but if you beat a team like this, a top 20 team in Louisville, that will certainly go a long way for you. I think the Cardinals will get the job done. I think the passing attack will get enough done late in the game to win this one. I have 24-21 as my score. I think that they just have enough offense to get the job done. The defenses will keep this balanced, and in a game like this where it's 2 elite defenses, I always tend to take the team with the better offense to get the job done in the end, because I think you can always get stops on your defense can continue to get stops for you, but your offense has to go out there and put points on the board. I think the Louisville offense will be the ones that finally get the job done. We saw that in the game against NIU, where the 2 defenses for Notre Dame and NIU were really balancing each other out, but which one offense could get them over the line in the end, and in the end it was the Huskies that got over the line, and I think the Cardinals will get over the line in this one. I like them to win this game, get a huge win for this program, as they're a legit contender in the ACC now, given how things continue to shake out in that conference. This is a fun matchup, certainly an important matchup in the grand scheme of things for college football. Expect that to be a really loud and tough environment for Notre Dame, but I'm taking the Cardinals in this one.
That's going to be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, appreciate you joining me. A game that's all of a sudden become a pretty big one. Hate that it's on Peacock. I'll still be tuned in one way or another, but for most fans, I probably won't be able to. Pretty dumb decision, honestly, by the media on that one.
Yeah, I'm not going to really lay into it because I'm just not happy about it. NBC, Notre Dame, they always do some weird stuff like this. Expect a lot of disappointment with them in terms of that broadcast deal. Don't like that it's streaming only. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I guess that's 2024, and that's kind of what happens these days. People find a way to watch the game. I'll find a way to watch the game and tune into this one because I do think it's a very interesting matchup. A lot at stake for both programs.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.